against my enemies, yeah. You see, you wanted to save you, and then learn how to raise you. But I forget you're from the wilderness.
Eamon, I was cleaning out my drawer there the other day, and I actually found a note about that time I found you in the woods. Do you remember that time?
Would you believe that I don't?
Oh, well, it just so happens anyway, when I was writing this note, I must have wrote it in the form of a poem rather than just a normal note, which is quite bizarre anyway. But if you would like me to read it, I might rejig your memory.
No, don't read it, thanks.
Oh, well, I didn't hear you properly there, so
Okay.
I'll just proceed. It's dark and late as I walk through the trees. I've been strolling for a while. It's time for a wheeze. I find a nice stump and pull out my lad. The relief is major. I'm feeling pretty rad. All of a sudden, I see Eamon through the bushes. He's got an arm around a woman that he thinks is luscious. Eamon, I shout, don't be such a simple goon. That's the Banshee. She'll bring about your doom. He looks at me and winks wryly. It's at that point he begins to grab the Banshee's arse slyly. This is my girlfriend, Eamon proclaims. I'm fed up of you trying to get in the way. It's at that moment the Banshee reached down. She grabbed Eamon's Mickey and flew all around. Eamon landed in a tree, crying and bruised. He said, I can't believe I fell for this ruse. That's what happens when you grab a Banshee's arse. A whole heap of trouble that ends in a farce.
Oh, no. So, I know usually I try to channel something through, you know?
Yes.
But I made a short 3-stanza poem.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
A poem
and the
of
first
his
two
own.
lines don't rhyme because I was trying to do it during work.
Okay.
So it was a quick one.
Experimental
but what's interesting,
poem.
Experimental poem. But what's interesting is that I found this poem in bin.
Oh.
Sorry, not did I say bin?
Yes,
I meant to say bottle in the ocean,
right?
Because I was at the ocean
with the
on
squids.
The weekend with the squids. Yeah, and the squid. Actually, that's exactly what happened. A squid came up with its tentacle wrapped around a bottle and said, "I think this one might be for you, Eamon."
Okay.
You know? First, kind of went away. It's like, "Might be for you," you know, and it's just sort of like threw it at me.
Right.
And it said, right?
Okay.
It says on the top of it, it says, "This was written in the third person by Rob Billington." And it says TIDTIND. It
was written by me.
In the third person. So you're writing about yourself as if you're writing as an omniscient narrator, let's say.
I don't recall writing this, but I've been known to do bizarre things, so.
That's the strange thing about this podcast, isn't it? It's just bringing up a lot of blind sides. But
exactly.
It basically it says, as Rob settles down to sleep, covered in the crumbs of cakes, the Jaffa kind that have made him wide, he hears a strange noise from outside. A wail, a groan, a song of loss. He listens up and ceases his toss. He peers outside and through the mist sees a ghoulish hag, yet is filled with bliss.
Oh.
Though the spectre is forlorn, her wrinkled ditties give Rob the horn.
True, I'm partial to an old wrinkled ditty.
Ah, why not? He once again grabs at his mast, unaware that this song will be his last.
All right.
Again, a squid. Now, the squid could have written it himself.
I you know what? It does actually ring a bell to me. And referring to my penis as a mast is definitely something that I would say. So yeah, I think
that does sound about right. Yeah.
I think it probably was me. So that's a good find, and so that squid that was the sound on. So I'll put that up on my wall. What's up, everyone? It's Monster Fuzz podcast. I am Rob, and with me is
Eamon.
Yeah, and we are Raymond as our new name. And yeah, guys, this is the first episode that is a patron suggestion. So the way that's going to work probably in the future is, I believe it's our lowest patron tier allows you to add your own like topic, your own idea for an episode. And it's experimental at the minute. And what me and Eamon are trying to do is basically perhaps do maybe 2 patron suggestions a month and 2 of our own suggestions a month. And that's kind of where we're at. So shouts out to Neve, shouts out for picking this episode in particular. It's one close to our hearts. It's the Irish stuff. So that's always good. We like talking about the Irish stuff. So yeah, this is what this is. So suggest if you're on Patreon, just drop us a suggestion and we'll definitely put it into consideration. Speaking of Patreon, patreon.com/Monster Fuzz. Check it out. Loads of tiers, loads of fun stuff. Our Discord be lit, fam, as Eamon would say.
Yeah.
We have new merch. teespring.com/stores/monster-fuzz. Check all that out, please. It's got Monster Fuzz. It's got Monster Fuzz written on it, and it's got Mothman on it. What else could you want? Eamon, tell them about Twitter.
Let me tell you something about Twitter. Fucking Monster Fuzz Pod. If you want to talk to us on the Twitter box,
we do talk.
We talk. Everywhere else, it's Monster Fuzz Podcast. Just type that into your little Google machine, and off you pop. We'll be there.
And if you have any episode suggestions, if you're a podcaster or if you're an author, perhaps you would like to reach out to us and you want to do an episode, you want to collab with us, do hit us up. But you have to have clout. Don't be coming at us with no chum bullshit. Just do hit us up at monsterfuzzpodcast@gmail.com. Any stories, anything like that, do give us a shout. We want to hear them, right?
Yeah. Have you seen a ghost? Is Bigfoot your uncle? Did aliens abduct you? Did maybe aliens? Were you upset because they abducted your brother or sister, but not you, and you've been wondering all your life what's wrong with you and why didn't they abduct you? Do you need to air some of these things out with 2 highly knowledgeable individuals about UFOs and sorry, no, not highly knowledgeable. 2 dopes that are contractually obliged to say Mickey and we didn't say Final Fantasy 7. Oh no, Mini Fuzz. We don't have to say in the Mini Fuzz. Yeah. So yeah, give us a call. I would love to hear about all this stuff. We have one guest I think that we're trying to get on. I won't say exactly who it is now, but the dude writes books about cryptids, sort of a Stephen King style. He's got books about the Jersey Devil, the Montauk Monster, some really interesting stuff. So we're just figuring out dates and stuff like that, but I think that could be a really interesting first little chat with each other, you know?
Absolutely.
Seems like a cool dude.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. We've got some heavy hitters coming up as possible guests in the future. And basically the way that
Kanye West was
West
onto us. He's on the Discord. He was all like, "Ooh, Yeezy," and I was like, "Take it easy, Yeezy."
Yeah, he seen a picture of my Yeezys and he was like, "Yeah, I'm all over that shit. I'll be on the podcast next week." So.
That's why I'm saying lit fam, because like he was like talking to him was like trying to read hieroglyphs. Like I was just like, "What's this fella on about?" But we're gonna help him with his election, so
yeah,
can't do much worse.
I don't believe he's actually running anymore, but that's sort of besides the point. I think he's gone a bit awry, shall we say, without getting into too many details about it. But again, guys, big thanks for our patrons. It means so much more than we can really convey through our words. I think, is that right, Eamon?
More than words.
Exactly, it's more
that
than
kind
words.
of a thing.
And so yeah, every time we get a patron, it's nuts. We love it. We love that you're willing to support us, and it does. It makes a difference in the middle of all this bullshit to be able to get a little bit of support, and it's nice to keep this as a media project going. We're trying to put out as much entertainment for you guys as we can, because we are aware that everyone's at a bit of an entertainment deficit at the minute, because there's lockdown in so many countries. So much bullshit going on. It's just shit. So if we can put out any type of nonsense that takes you away for an hour and a half, like, we will definitely try and do that.
Yeah, and we're getting some really fun like reviews now at the moment as well. So it's really good to see those coming in. So like, if you can leave reviews, like if you're not into the Patreon side, don't worry about that. But just some reviews, spread the word around. couple of five, give us some 5-star ratings would be nice.
Yeah, good shout.
But yeah, would really appreciate it.
The review competition is still on, guys, so please do leave reviews with a funny quote, and do send us a screenshot of that, whether it be on Apple Podcasts or Podcast Addict or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Leave a little review, something funny, maybe a funny quote from the episode, or just a funny review yourself. Please send it to us, and you will be in the running to win a juicy Monster Fuzz hoodie of your size, of your color, anything that you want. You let us know. Me and Eamon will send it to you personally. Eamon will
we won't arrive at your door unless you live really close to us.
Well, I was going to say you're going to rub it under your armpits before we send it to sort of give it your musk.
Like, if they want that, I'll do it. Now I will say, man, my musk it's not bad. Like I cycled, for an hour and a half today. Haven't had a chance to take a shower yet, and if I don't mind saying so myself, the stench isn't. It's
Iman musk.
A sweet bumwee.
Oh, bumwee. Sweet odors of bumwee from Iman Musk.
Delicioso. Yeah, Elon Musk. Iman Musk. Yeah, no, sorry, Iman. Iman Musk. I'd be sending fucking shit to space with this smell, yo.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, let's get into it, guys. We are talking about the Banshee, which originated in Ireland, in case you didn't know. This is an Irish cryptid. So the name Banshee, which I didn't know until I was putting this together, and I kind of really should have, it comes from two Irish words, ban and she. So that means fairy woman or woman of the fairy mound. Why does she arrive, Eamon? What's the crack with her?
Well, she usually arrives to herald the death of someone. As we all know, or maybe not we all know, but most Irish people would know, that the Banshee is known for a shrill cry or shriek. Right. You hear the Banshees, some people call it the song, but it's often a cry, and it's linked to loved ones passing. Right. She has a few different forms. The one we generally come across is the sort of spectral, ghost-like form. You're talking shades of green, blue, grey, ephemeral kind of, what would you say, hues?
Wishy-washy.
Watercoloured bitches.
Yeah, sea hag tones.
Dulcet sea hag tones,
She's sometimes depicted with red hair as opposed to white, and with red eyes from crying so much. So that's more the human form that Eamon was grabbing her arse that night in the woods. That's
now that night the red eyes were we were hitting waterfalls hard. So we were just like hits from the bong. Listen to Cypress Hill, fucking.
Oh, so she was
in the
ripping
forest.
Fucking kush, like.
Oh, son, we were cushed out of it. Like we were like purple haze, like all up in that place. So the night, and then because the way sometimes I think that the weed sort of could drive you one way or another. But obviously weed generally tends to make you not horny, but maybe I just had to grab a clump of Banshee bottom.
So the Banshee is a bit of a hash fiend.
Mad hash lady. Okay. I think her Twitter handle is actually TechHashy69.
Hash 420.
Hash 420. She calls herself April 20th.
Yeah.
She's that kind of a lady.
Yeah, and she hangs around old tumuli, which are old Irish burial mounds, and also cairns, which are those mounds of rocks made famous by travelers of old, or old settlements, all that type of stuff, or more recently Instagrammers. So people that are trying to stack a lot of rocks for a cool picture.
Yeah. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, and also there's actually been warnings against that, because what the dopey cunts are doing is they're displacing wildlife when they're taking up them rocks. So it's not so much of an issue in Ireland. Well, it kind of is, but in places like Australia, where say lizards and skinks and things like that live under rocks, so these Aegis are basically lifting up the lizards' houses and stacking them on top of each other.
Yeah.
So it's not really a good thing. So please don't be stacking mounds of rocks. Please, that was something that I learned when I was researching this episode.
Yeah, cop yourselves on. Don't be stacking rocks.
Yeah, originally the Banshee. What were you saying?
I was gonna say, what are you trying to make? A fucking what was it? The Dolmen portal?
A
Is that what
dolmen,
they're
yeah.
called? Dolmen, yeah.
Yeah. No, they're basically, guys, you can Google them anyway. A cairn or a tumuli. Some of the tumuli are actually really cool. They look like, a sort of big mound of dirt. Like it's a huge, vast burial mound rather than a little small stack of rocks. And you can see them littering some of the Irish historical sites. But originally, the Banshee appeared to people who were about to suffer a violent and painful death, such as murder. In later stories, she wailed outside their door at night, usually around wooded areas close by, but she was rarely seen. So there was very few actual reports of her. But Eamon, why don't you
Did I
tell
ever
us?
tell you, before we get into this, did I ever tell you that as a child, I thought that I had heard the Banshee?
No, but you need to tell us now.
I need to tell you now. It's only just come back to me. It's like a flashback. I was just
Right.
there. We were talking about Chumuli, and now I'm all like, oh my God.
Is that what they're called? Tumuli or Chumuli?
Chumuli, because they're friendly graves, friendly burial places. Chumuli. But yeah, when I was a kid, living in my street, I remember I was out one night, like it was summertime, so it would have been, you're still out at night playing, but it's starting to get dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard darkness falls. And I heard a shrill shriek from. It would have been a bit like that, like what you've done there. I think it was more of like,
okay, right,
kind of a thing. So I heard that, and then a couple of days later, a grand uncle of mine died.
Oh shit!
Yeah. Now, and I was convinced as a child that it was the Banshee, but
You might be onto something.
Could have been. So there you go.
Well, that's actually quite a damning. That's actually good evidence for the Banshee. So that's a nice little tale to start this episode.
Nice little tale. And we're going to get into how the Banshee sort of tends to link itself to O'Neill's.
Yeah, it's getting
which is my second name. So shit's starting to get real.
It's getting
real
dicey for you,
scary.
brother.
But let's get into it, because y'all don't want to be knowing about my dead uncles. I'm talking about my dead relative. That's it. We're actually sponsored by Final Fantasy VII, Mickey's and my dead relatives. We have to talk about them in every fucking episode.
We be after them ghost Patreon ducats.
Yeah. My nanny's all like, I'll give you a $5, just talk about me funeral again. You sang feckin' Jeff Buckley. It was lovely, but the lyrics now, when I look at it, not the most Catholic. Anyway, right? That's made us €10. Anyway, right? My nanny, ghost ducats. So, did you actually hear about your cousin's tattoo idea before moving on?
No.
He wants to get a tattoo of Blinky and Pinky from
Pinky and the Brain.
No, Pinky and Blinky from Pac-Man, the little ghosts.
Okay, all right.
And he just wants to write down Mam and Dad underneath it. Right,
okay, yeah, we're moving on anyway.
Fair enough. Okay, so oh God, the origin of the Banshee is quite ordinary compared to the tales that surround her. In medieval times, during funerals, a woman would take on the role of a keener. And so keeners sang sad songs called Conna, the Irish word for... Conna, yeah. Or sorry, Conna's singing. Queenav is crying. Yeah. So Queenav was the Irish word for crying at the graveside.
I'm so sad.
Yeah. I'm nobody's child. And they wouldn't, it's always shrill, so they don't have the vibrato. It's not, you wouldn't get any of that shit. None of that. They'd be just like, you've left me and the children away, and we have no way of feeding ourselves.
Just my rifle, my pony, and me.
Everything die, diddly eyes.
So they're doing that by the graveside anyway.
Oh man, I would do that for a living. I would go down with nothing prepared and just be like, tell me about him. I'd be like, like every Irish funeral, he was fond of a pint, which means he had a serious drinking problem. And we all know that Michael was fond of a pint. And then like doing the Keenan, it'd be great. You'd be kind of like sitting down beside the grave, like, oh, if you'd only stuck to 7 pints, would you have fallen down the stairs? Could you still be be here if you hadn't gone through the window and slashed your jugular vein. I make a great Keener. I dominate that job, son.
Keener O'Neill.
Keener O'Neill. All right, Keener, what's the crack? I just going to another funeral, man. Some chap, I tell you now, didn't he get a pear lodged up his back passage, man, and couldn't get it out, and he actually died from toxosis.
He was an arsehole, but he liked the pint.
Nobody likes you, but you had a few pounds, so we're waiting on your will right now. You'll have the crack with it. Oh, Keener and Kell, you and me can do it. You
Can
just
I be
at the
cool?
graveside. Yeah, Keener and Kell. The beats two of us. It'd be lethal.
Yeah, can I be Coolio and I'll rap while you do Keenan?
Oh yeah.
You'd
be like,
oh, here it goes, and then you're going, oh.
You'd be like, as I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, I take a look at these people and realize that I'm dead.
Oh lordy, so anyway, there's business to be made as a Keener. Monster apparently.
There's good business to be made as a Keener,
Right.
especially, like, I would imagine, we're probably not going to get any more Patreons or shit like that, but we're definitely going to get people, like, emailing us just being like, listen, we got a funeral coming up, and we heard your homeboys' rap / queen of fucking Keener shit that you did. Icona queen of Queen Con.
Yep.
Oh, Queen Con. Fucking it's like a Comic Con. It's like Queen Con. It's like some sort of gay convention. It's a death convention, and no, I'm not saying anything bad. Queen Con. Fuck.
Right. Oh, I get you now. Oh, okay, I get you. Yeah.
It's just like, anyway. Right. Good business to be made as a Keener. so families would pay very well for a talented one. Which, again, that's what me, Keener and Kell are going to get into. The best known ones always attended the funerals of the biggest and most well-known people and were much sought after. As more people mourning at the funeral, the greater the person was said to be. So it's almost like fucking when Kim Jong-un's dad died, and they were like out crying each other and shit like that, or they'd get sent to the gulag. So the most
it's a bit shit to like. Well, like it's kind of the same now. Like, I mean, if you go to a funeral and there's two lads at it, you're like, oh, this is a bit dirt. So I mean, like it's no different nowadays, really, right?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to have a conversation when it's just you and one other lad at a funeral that you probably don't know. You know,
you got all the sandwiches.
How did you know, Michael? But would you? Because if it was only you and another lad, one of you would have to make the sandwiches. You'd be like,
"Oh, that's true." It's like the dilemma.
Did you bring any sandwiches? Did you? No, I thought someone else would bring the sandwiches. You'd be like, "What are we going to eat?" So, sandwich roulette, yeah, fucking ham on the brain. But basically, for the most powerful families, it was a common belief that a Banshee or a fairy woman would come to keen at the grave. Ireland has a rich lore with fairies and the fae, and fairies presumably would be more talented than any human singer. Which obviously I wasn't alive back then, because I'm not saying I'm the best singer in the world, but I'm probably top 2.
Okay.
That said, I said that as a joke. I don't think the joke part got it. I think it just sounded like I was being a really arrogant.
Yeah, no, you're just being a prick, but you're grand, like.
But no, I'm taking it back. I'm taking it back because I realized the joke didn't land, and I'd like to apologize to the listeners. I'm actually more top 10, not top 2. Come on now. No. I'm just joking. I just joke.
And like us, by the way, who I don't think we've ever mentioned on the podcast, are number 1 in motherfucking science fiction in Ireland. I don't think we ever actually addressed that.
Are we still number 1?
We're like top 5 anyway at the minute.
See, that's what I do. I'm like, I'm the best, and like I'm actually top 5.
No, but we actually have a metric, so get that into you, folks. Thank you for the listens.
Yeah, appreciate it. And if you need anyone to sing at your recently deceased relative's grave, Keener and Kell, let us know.
We'll do it. Oh, here we go. The Irish phrase of the Banshee, it became anglicized, so that's where it used to be ban and she, two separate words, but it became anglicized into Banshee. So it's actually 2 Irish words. So when you say Banshee, you're speaking Irish. It's a nice little tidbit for you guys.
Enjoy yourself.
Yeah, and over time, the stories, I suppose, developed and morphed into what we know today. And the fact that keeners were paid into alcohol and
Mm.
often ended up as elderly alcoholic women that were banished from towns and
Banished
villages.
from the towns. Nah, she's too fucking pished. Like, how fucked up on alcohol did you have to be in medieval Ireland to get banished from a
You
town?
liked me when I was singing at the funeral.
Just-
Why don't you
yeah.
like me now,
Sitting there
Tommy?
surrounded by pints of stout, just singing,
And they don't talk.
I tell you, how about this? How about I fucking kill you and sing at your funeral after drinking 12 pints?
They're just saying all the time, so they're really annoying. You're just like, oh, for fuck's sake. And they just narrate everything they do.
They're like fucking Craig David in Bo Selector.
Yeah. And so,
gosh.
eventually after a while in the villages, they were like, lads, he's got to get out of here. Stop fucking singing.
Yeah, lads, this is too much.
I know we used to pay in pints, but we've had enough now. The first known written story of a banshee was from Sean McCrath's Cathrium. Oh fuck, Tjordalbag.
Tjordilveg? Look at two Irish lads being like,
No, that's
Norsemen.
that word is ridiculous. Like,
Thordlai.
it translates to the triumphs of Turlock. Turlock is an Irish name, and I actually sat beside a guy called Turlock in class. He was the only person I've ever known that was named Turlock, and as you can imagine, he was absolutely tormented for having that name and sit beside me in class. It was unfortunate.
And how's Turlock getting on now?
I don't know. I actually searched him there after when I was doing the notes for this episode. I was like, I wonder what Turlock is up to. I can't really find him. He's gone back into the ether. I think maybe he was.
I was really worried that, like, without missing a beat, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, killed himself back in 2007." I'd be like, "Oh fuck, right." He was tormented. He was driven demented with everyone.
I think he's doing good now. I think.
Good. Well, Turlock, you never mind the naysayers, man.
Yeah.
You're all right in my eyes.
Oh no, he's
You're
all right.
in my
Like,
eyes.
I mean, look, he was an innocent bystander in the teenager age. That was me. Like, but basically, so it seems like the Banshee is just a pissed up woman. So, do you have any good pissed up woman stories? Do you have any stories about?
I have several, but I don't know if it's a good idea to tell them on the story. Oh, I tell you one actually. This is a recent story.
Like Bill Cosby or something, and there's just like some revelation.
No, it's just like there's no creepy stories.
Okay,
there's just
right.
like you would know who I'm talking about, and lots of people who listen to us would. And then
you can use fake names. I mean, come on now.
If you ever fucking make a show of me on that podcast of yours again, it wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah.
There was recently. It was last Christmas.
Yeah.
We were down, and I was actually out. Gordo's brother was playing a gig in this little fucking. To be honest, man, it was like an Evil Dead pub, like a little weird little cabin place. Out in Ballymarn, and they were playing a gig, and the place was like, it was so bizarre. It was like the Hills Have Eyes, just having pints. There was a little fella, and he was screaming. He was calling Gordo's brother a prick because he wouldn't play Boule of Vogue. Because like you don't go to pubs. They were playing all the popular songs, like the.
Look, man, listen. If you're not playing Boule of Vogue, come on.
You got to play Boule of Vogue, and people from the crowd were forcing them to let him sing the old Triangle and all. Like it was really like it was like the
circus.
It was, but yeah, exactly. Irish drunken circus. But basically there was in all the people there was two sort of youngish, not young girls, they're probably about, I'd say, late 20s, early 30s, but compared to the rest of the patrons, they were relatively young. And there was another woman who was probably in her 40s or 50s. And the best thing was her, like, she was actually quite an attractive woman, but I went out for a cigarette and all I could hear from the side of the pub was just like, I can see you because you're fucking looking at her all night, you prick. Right? Like that. And then she just, that older lady stormed past me. I was like, all right, fair enough. And I think she was talking about one of the two younger girls. So, blonde and a brunette. Yes. And they were drinking hard. Like they're getting out the shots and they're just lining them up, The best was the brunette girl. She was like sculling pints, hitting everything. She was lit up. And they all take a shot of something, right?
Two guys, Banshees. 2 girls.
Oh, stop. I'd say shrill voices on them. But as soon as she took a shot, you saw her. It was like do you remember when Tony Ferguson got rocked in the last fight, and his head tried to like shake,
Yeah.
like his head was telling him to stop fighting.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so it was like that. She kind of wobbled, and she's like, "Oh God." And then she got like the sugar, I guess, from the shot kind of brought her back to life. She started dancing really hard. And this all happened in like 30 seconds. So it was this really quick turnaround. And then she just fucking spewed vomit everywhere.
Nice.
It was
classic Banshee.
Classic Banshee.
Classic Banshee maneuver. I have a Banshee story, actually. Me and a friend of mine were driving along the quay one time, and we came up to the foot of the bridge, which is in Wexford Town is quite a busy junction. One would say one of the busiest junctions in town. And it was about 12:30 a.m. of a Saturday night, a Sunday morning, and there was a woman in the middle of the junction with her pants pulled down, doing a wee-wees.
Right.
And that was the last time I actually seen a Banshee. So there's been plenty of reports of Banshees around, so that's just the most recent one in my eyes. But
yeah, I will say, like, generally, you see piss girls and piss lads, but generally you see lads doing way more messed up stuff than pissed up women.
yeah, it's you do, and it's just funnier when you see a woman do it, because you expect, like, with lads you expect it almost. You get me? It's like we're depraved shitbags, so you expect that degree of degeneracy. So it's always refreshing when you see like a Banshee that's down,
a daywalker.
Yeah, you see a daywalker that's down with our way of living. But yeah, she can appear, like the Banshee herself can appear in a number of guises. She could be a young, beautiful woman, which is like the one.
Which, for the record, was the one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you were feeling the whole off.
Yeah.
And she can either appear as a stately matron or as an ugly, frightening hag.
Which is the one that you tried to have a toss over.
Yeah. Well, that's what I meant to like. But so when do you know how long I've been typing Banshee into Pornhub and just been getting North Irons? How disappointed I've been.
Yeah. Just a long time.
I've been at it for years. But she's so basically it sort of seems like any type of keener could have been a Banshee, really. I think that's kind of what it's alluding to here, is that probably some young beautiful women were keeners, stately matrons probably as well, and then
they just got too high on their own supply and turned into an ugly, frightening hag.
Yeah, back in those days in Ireland, an ugly, frightening hag was about 35. Probably she wasn't a bit far off.
Yeah, probably like our age. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's usually dressed in grey or has a white hooded cloak. While not always seen, her mourning cries can be heard usually at night when someone is about to die. Those who claim to have seen her describe long hair which she runs a comb through, similar to tearing the hair out in anguish. It's for that reason that some Irish folk won't pick a comb up off the floor for fear of being taken away by fairies. I've actually heard that one before. Yeah, it was, I think one of my aunties used to talk about the Banshee. She used to try and fucking drive us dull when we were kids. Like, we were about like fucking 7. And like, she'd see a comb and say this to us. But surprisingly enough though, like, just ominous, oh, the Banshee's going to get you. Like in Ireland, it was used as a sort of it was side by side with the boogeyman for me anyway. Personally. It was used as a tale to kind of keep children, in line or a little bit afraid of getting up at night or whatever. But surprisingly enough, she is actually harmless. It'll just frighten the balls off you, which seems to be why she was created. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, kind of a cautionary thing, you tell it's associated with death. So I suppose it's kind of like, don't be at that now or the Banshee will take you away. And there's Irish people have a big, like we were saying earlier, big history with the fairies.
Yeah.
The changeling, there was a whole thing. The changeling was a whole thing where they thought that the fae could basically steal your child and replace it with an exact double.
Maybe
I'm getting this wrong. Yeah, they're saying capgrass. I'm not sure if that's the right, but there's a psychological thing. I don't know if it's capgrass syndrome.
For sure.
Yeah, we'll be doing all this. But there's a very famous changeling story about a man who was actually sentenced to jail or potentially death, I can't remember, because he he thought that his child was a changeling, that he'd been changed with the fairies. And what you had to do was put it on a shovel, put the shovel over the fire, and if the child screamed out in pain, you knew it was a human child, and if it was a
Right.
fairy, it would turn back into a fairy and fly away. And he effectively killed his kid. Now he was fond. He probably drank more than a keener, to be fair.
Right.
So that actually happened. There's historical accounts of it. So yeah, if we ever get into changelings and some of the fae stuff there, we can look at it. But the Banshee, it does seem to be, as you've said, it's something to just make the kids go to bed.
Yeah, and so what forms does she assume? Like, what's the...
Well, sometimes the Banshee assumes the form of some sort of sweet singing virgin of the family who's died young, and has been given the mission by the invisible powers of I would imagine, our Lord,
yes.
to become the harbinger of coming doom to her mortal kindred. Now, again, could it be that Mothman is a type of Banshee, albeit without the singing? It's a harbinger of sorrow. Harbinger of sorrow!
The Banshee does fly, as does Mothman. A definite solid link there between the two.
Mothman could do with a comb because he's quite hairy, as can be seen in our t-shirts.
Maybe
Shout out to Teespring, Monster Fuzz. Check out our t-shirts. But he could do with a comb, I'd say, just to get his hair under control.
Maybe
a bit of wax.
Has a harem of Banshees. Bitches.
That'd be so. I tell you, that sounds like you'll be on Pornhub for a while tonight trying to find that video.
I've looked already, man. That ain't there.
Someday. Now we also have, reported sort of the lore of the Banshee, that she can be seen as a shrouded woman crouched beneath the trees. You would imagine that it's a weeping willow type of tree, because that looks like a big sad tree.
True. The weeping willow is known as an emotional tree, I think.
An emo tree.
It's sad. It's never really in a good mood. You kind of just want it to sort of brighten itself up a bit, but it never really
can't
does.
even swing on its leaves because they can't take your weight. So you're sort of like, it's a tree that has a lot of potential to be fun, but will just break you up if you try to play with it.
But the willow, now I'm not an expert in horticulture or anything like that, but I believe a willow is just a sad oak tree.
I thought, what's the one that has the stuff that, the real long sort of rope-like twigs that hang down with the leaves on it?
The Mickey tree.
Oh, the Mickey tree. The Mickey tree. Right, let's move on quickly. So she'll be underneath the Mickey tree, lamenting with a veiled face, or flying past in the moonlight, crying bitterly, which would be a really fucked up thing to see. Just look out the window and you see a young one zooming by. Why? Like, fucking bollocks. And wasn't it in The Witcher you had noon wraiths?
Yeah,
which
yeah,
were like
yeah. They were
banshees
terrifying.
that came out in the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had bad old jaws on them.
They did.
Maybe from all the singing. The cry of this spirit is mournful beyond all other sounds on earth, and it betokens certain death to some member of the family whenever it is heard in the silence of night. Again, my grand uncle died when I heard a shrill scream. It wasn't very melodic, to be fair. Did I hear a banshee? Write into Monster Fuzz podcast at gmail.com and let me know if I did.
It's so it's a very sad thing. So it's kind of like the brown sound for sorrow, I suppose you could say, right? So instead of shitting yourself, you go in the corner and have a little bit of a cry. Would that be right?
Yeah, and look, crying's good for you.
It's
I
healthy.
believe it's healthy.
It's progressive.
It's progressive. Yeah, it is progressive. There's no point acting like the hard man. Have a cry when you want to. But, don't do it when you're gliding around the place, mourning people's death and combing your hair with a bone comb.
Yes, but also all of this talk of banshees, it is actually bad news for Eamon, I'm afraid.
Oh, man.
I hate to break it to Eamon, but it is often stated that banshees lament only the descendants of pure Milesian stock of Ireland. Now, Milesian, not to be confused with Milchon, which is the Irish for sweets. So Eamon is from the sweets stock of Ireland. He
That's
likes,
me, baby.
I do like apple drops and fucking pear.
My favourites, I like the sour jellies.
mint humbugs.
No, I don't like a mint humbug or a Scots clan. I wouldn't thank you for those.
Well, we're talking
But,
about Milchon here. You know.
Yeah,
you're
a
talking about
Milchon. I want the Dodie with the sour
sour
sugar on
worms
it.
are Milchon, man. They were made like 20 years ago. Milchon is way before that. Like.
But sure, they were all shite
Yeah, you're
fucking
talking about
sweets. They
apple
had.
drops. Well, if you're calling the apple drops shit,
Give us a quarter pound of bullseyes. Fuck off.
yeah, you need bullseyes. Bullseyes.
No, apple drops are the best of it. Yeah, apple
Yeah,
drops are
if you're gonna
decent,
talk
to
shit
be fair.
about apple drops, we're just dead. The podcast. Is
No, I'm
over.
not talking shit about it. I mean, you may
Okay.
as well talk shit about cola whoppers. Like, no, you couldn't be doing that. You couldn't be doing that.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't, you guys are from the States, it's apple drops are actually a type of candy. You might have them over there, but it's a little circular.
You can go into your local corner store, or you get like a quarter pound of apple drops.
They
Hey,
probably
can
don't-
I get like 16 ounces of apple drops?
Do they do pound in America? Probably not, right?
No. Well, they
No.
do. They would do pounds, yeah, because they measure
Oh, do
everything
they?
in like, yeah, like like even UFC, the
Oh yeah, that's
175
right. Yeah, of
pound.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they don't do kg. They're not into
No.
that.
No. So Eamon is of pure Milchon stock. Sometimes clarified as surnames prefixed with O and Mac. Now,
Like
for those
McDonald would have been.
old MacDonald, as he
McDonald's,
was known, he
yeah.
had a farm. The Eamon is an O'Neill, so he's actually one of the old school. So some accounts even state that each family has its own personal Banshee, and some legends claim that she could only cry for 5 families from Ireland. That was the O'Neills, we've got Eamon there, the
Yep.
O'Briens, the O'Connors, the O'Gradys, and Kavanaghs.
Yeah. So basically, me, Matthew, and Brian all
Yeah,
have
actually.
our own. Have our own Banshee. Now it is interesting because I
I'm
didn't
English,
obviously.
so I just laughed at all these.
No,
chased
you're
around
just
on a
like the
horse.
the tan Billington over there.
I chased around on a horse and laughed. That just made me getting terrorized by
Oh,
Banshees.
silly peasants, mourning your ancestors' death. But what's interesting is, like, I had totally forgotten that I had that story being a kid and thinking I'd heard about the Banshee until we were actually recording this. So that story is just, it's funny that that's there. You
It's
know, you
become
did the
more
research on
poignant
this
now,
one.
right?
Yeah, poignant,
Poignant.
poignant, because we did poems at the start. I'm gonna go back to just freestyling next
yeah.
episode. I don't know. I like freestyling, man.
Do
I
you?
like freestyling. I don't like writing in advance.
Well, I sit down with my feather and my ink pot, and I take my time at candlelight and I write down my poems, and that's why I do it. It's a nice little thing. I've tried to do the improv thing, and I do improv. Like, I can do it. Like, I've done it a few times while we're prepping episodes. I'm like, will I just do it off the cuff? But I think for me, I think I can write funnier poems, so that's why I execute the poem in. But actually, just to clarify, while we're talking about poems, there's been numerous people now have asked me, am I saying poem on purpose? Like, do I know how to say poem?
I know how to say poem.
And yeah, no, I do know how to say poem, folks.
It's amazing how difficult it is to say poem when you're trying to say poem.
Poem is actually
like,
really hard to say.
It's a really difficult word to say. Like, I mean, we've been doing this is like our 23rd or 24th episode, and I'm only starting to get the way it sounds now. Like, it's like my mouth won't say it.
Yeah, my mouth loves saying a poem. It's like it's a really fun thing to say, and that's why I say it. So I don't even know why. But what is your Banshee, Eamon? If you were to have, like, what do you see when you see a Banshee?
It'd be like a cross between Jody Marsh.
Old school reference there from Sun magazine, Sun paper.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean Jody Marsh. The other one, Jordan. The other one, yeah,
Right.
Two of them were at each other.
Right.
Like cross between Jordan, but like nowadays Jordan. No,
Oof.
future Jordan, when she's gonna look real.
Jesus.
Like,
Right, okay.
yeah.
So we're getting grim then.
it's like turkey gizzard Jordan, and yeah, so it's like her, so big titties, but like, but like they don't look right. Very
Well,
spectral.
I'd imagine
No
implants-
veneers, only your own teeth.
What if the skin gets really saggy, but the implants stay in, so they're like hanging like fucking chandeliers, skin
Ugh.
chandeliers?
Oh, like some sort of fucking melted pudding.
Yeah, not good, man.
Ugh.
Not good. It's
Actually,
like
do
the
you know
elephant
what?
foot in Chernobyl.
I think I'd rather change my answer.
Oh yes.
I'd rather change my answer. I would have I don't know. I think I'd like to go with, like, I don't want the young sort of hot keener. I like the idea of like, my Banshee was an older skeletal sort of a woman, you know, that probably looks like the creepy bath lady from The Shining.
Right. Yeah, that's um, it's a credible and yeah, that's a good Banshee.
The OG Banshee, you know.
Yeah, you might be wondering why we're talking about Milchans and Milesians, but in the Lebor Gabala Aaron, a medieval Irish.
The Leabhar Gabála Éireann. Come on.
Yeah, all right. Medieval Irish Christian pseudo history. The Milesians are the final race to settle in Ireland. They represent the Irish people. The Milesians are Gaels who sailed to Ireland from Iberia, which is Hispania, after spending hundreds of years travelling the earth. When they land in Ireland, they contend with the Tuatha De Danann, who represent the pagan gods. So yeah, there was a bit of a skirmish between these dudes and the more sort of pagan, old-fashioned. The two groups agreed to divide Ireland between them. The Milesians take the world above, while the Tuatha take the world below, i.e. the other world. So for any of our American listeners, Irish history and everywhere else, Australia, we have a lot in Australia, we have a lot in Canada, a lot of Europeans, but it's a rich history, isn't it? Irish history.
Yeah, certainly in its folklore, a really nice folklore. I know, look, lots of countries do. It's interesting when you look at folklore, because America's it's a young country, let's
melting pot of different cultures. Yeah,
it's really just the Native Americans that have folklore similar to ours. Like when we talked about the Skinwalkers, we had the underworld. We had how they brought magic, first man and first woman, and all that sort of stuff. So you see this sort of stuff, but there's some really cool Irish folklore. The Fovery were like giants who lived under the mud. They could come up out of the mud and eat people and stuff like that.
Cuchulainn man is the legend.
Yeah, Cuchulainn's the original G.
Yeah, he's the one that I would recommend anyone that isn't from Ireland to go and look into first. And all those other cool stories we used to learn in school was like Deirdre of the Sorrows, Oisin from Tirna Nog. All of these really cool. The Time Bo Coolnia, which is a text. There's a lot of really cool stuff. Is the Time Bo Coolnia a text, or is it a set of paintings like a tapestry?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I think
I can't remember off the top of my head.
The Tyne is like one of Ireland's most famous like works, and I think it's actually a book. I'm gonna look it up there now. The Time Bo Coolnia is the driving off of cows of Cooley. It's about a cattle raid, but it's an epic from early Irish literature, and it's often called the Irish Iliad. So we were very fortunate in our school as young kids to have teachers that really instilled things like the Time Bo Coolnia into us. So that's why I remember it. You know, I remember this stuff from primary school when I was very young. And it's a very rich history that we have, which is why I suppose there's so many very proud Irish citizens, you know, especially those that read into this side of things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of stuff. And actually, if you just type in Irish folklore or Irish, I don't know, monsters, I suppose. Yeah, there's a huge amount of stuff that pops up. Huge amount.
We've got like so much Irish material that we will go into, and we'll probably talk to some Irish like scholars or like.
There's no way we get a scholar on this show.
Yeah,
never mind your PhD, but we have to say Mickey 4 times now. I know.
Watch this space. But in other words, really, sort of to summarize that a little bit on the Milesians there, Eamon's basically a traveller, so you can sort of speculate on that how you will. I think every different type of person.
I think like five generations back, I have some travelling blood in me.
Right.
Me ma will kill me for saying that, but yeah, I think it's true.
It's on wax now, Eamon.
I don't care.
It's also how right that here's another great one, right? So Eamon fell in the ditch one night after drinking too much and fell asleep, and I thought it was very amusing and hilarious. And I tried to bring it up on air, and he swerved and dodged it. And I don't know what episode it was, but if you
I think it was
know,
the Jabba Fofi. I just
no,
was
no,
like,
no,
yeah, that happened.
yeah, Jabba Fofi you admit to it, but I'm trying to remember the episode where you sort of swerved it.
When you were like, so what happened? I can't remember which episode, but you were like, quiet weekend, was it? And I just go, stop it now. And that was as far as we went.
So that's an Easter egg for you, but the reason
I would say that it's either the Kraken or it's not
Dorku, maybe one of them ones.
Yeah, I'd say it's either the Kraken or Dorku, yeah.
And the reason I'm bringing that up is because Eamon, like, you know, willingly on Gordo's fucking Swapcast, we get like he's after getting something like 50,000 listens. You said fucking, oh yeah, great, yeah. We wouldn't, like, it was only me and your ma listening back then, Eamon. That was before the Divine Spark.
Well, that was why, you see, because it was like when it was just you and my ma, I felt more vulnerable. But now that everyone's listening, I feel like more people will be like, sure, we all fall in the ditch sometimes.
Right, yeah, it was a funny story though. We'll have to actually tell it properly on the podcast sometime.
No, we won't. It's like literally drank too much, fell in the ditch and slept. That's the story. Like nothing else happened that was interesting. There was no drama. I was like the most passive drunk. Yeah.
It's a funny story for sure. But Eamon, there's not just one Banshee. We were resting on our laurels thinking, fucking, oh, we've got the Banshee wrapped up, let's go to bed. I've had
Fucking
2 whiskeys,
hell.
it's time to go to sleep. There's not. Tell us about the next Banshee, Eamon.
The Llannon side.
Yes.
The Llannon side, or the fairy lover,
Yes.
is the Banshee's sexy cousin. I think there's some songs. She's a fairy lover. Don't you know she's the Banshee's cousin? She's depicted as a beautiful woman of the Ossi, the people of the Barrows, who take human lovers. Lovely.
Oh.
Lovers of the Llannon side are said to live brief, though highly inspired lives. Kurt Cobain, for example.
Amy Winehouse is a Llannon
side. The 27 Club.
Yes.
The name comes from the Gaelic words for a sweetheart, lover, or concubine, and the term for inhabitants of fairy mounds.
Let me inhabit your fairy mound, girl.
Mound, 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 mound.
I want to get in your fairy mound.
The mound is calling to my britches.
Going down to Mound Town, girl.
Yeah. I'm gonna pound the mound when I'm finished keening for this fella in the ground.
Oh, lordy.
While the Llannon side is most often depicted as a female fairy, there is at least one reference to a male Llannon side troubling a mortal woman. So where's the man? It seems
that
to be
was
like
us.
a nice...
That was just us singing.
That was us, was it?
Yeah. We're just followed women around going, I want to go down your fairy mound.
Well, they always say to, like, you know, just, you know, to show that you have a skill, you know? So like you can do, check this out, right? I'll give you my skill right now. This is auto-tune without auto-tune, right?
Okay, like Future, the rapper.
Yeah, Future tune. So what you do is you just punch yourself in the throat as you're singing, and it makes it do. So watch, you go like you're in the ground and I want to take you out of the ground and have some fun time. Yeah,
I'm really impressed.
Natural auto-tune.
Lady Gaga, you should do Poker Fest with that shit.
You can actually do, you know that the Lonely Island song?
Yeah.
So you can do Never thought of me on a boat.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a big blue watery road. Yeah.
T-Pain.
You can have the crack with it.
Yeah, that's good.
It's all right. Tell me about
Might
W.E. Yeats.
Yeah, you might get esophageal cancer, but it's definitely
sure. The fags will do that anyway.
Yeah, well, that's true as well, yeah. W.B. Yeats, Irish legend, fag smoker, drank a bit of whiskey probably. I don't know about that, but he popularized...
Like they did.
Yeah, he probably did. He popularized his own newly ancient version of the Llannon side, emphasizing the spirit's almost vampiric tendencies. So think like a succubus type of thing, right? As he imagined it, the Llannon side is depicted as a beautiful muse who offers inspiration to an artist. There's many an artist that was inspired by Minge. We've gone into this before, but Minge is definitely an inspiration for most stuff. As we know, the Sistine Chapel was painted by an erect Mickey. and there's plenty of there's plenty of other things that have been inspired by Minge. It's like that. You ever see that Italian lad on Instagram? No, I may show him to you sometime. He's about late 50s. He's an Italian.
Oh, it
dude.
goes on the boats with
Yeah,
he's like in really
dances.
good shape.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know someone who like sailed a boat for him.
Oh, really? Wow, I'm fucking
Yeah,
jealous.
yeah.
This is revelations shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's the man. He's inspired by a beautiful Lenon side, I would imagine. I think that's what's getting him fucking up dancing and
Like
bouncing around the
the
place.
Dan Bilzerian sort of stuff.
Yeah. Look,
Yeah.
all of them are into that Lenon side. Buzz. What is the actual crack,
Mm.
Eamon?
So basically, they seek the love of mortals. If the mortals refuse, the Lenon she must be their slave.
Ah,
Now, if the mortal consents, then he would become her slave.
right.
And you can only escape by finding another to take their place. So have you ever seen the movie It Follows?
No.
So the idea is that when you have sex, the invisible force comes to try and kill you, and the only way to pass it on is to have sex with someone else. It's almost like an STD, and the ghost kind of comes after them.
Right.
So this is almost a similar sort of like, that's like a modern take on that folklore to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's a good movie, very good movie.
Right. So that's a recommendation. then.
Go watch It Follows, or
Right.
don't. I don't care. The fairy lives on their life, and they waste away. So this is like the opposite, in keeping with our W.B. Yeats did Dorian Gray, didn't he?
No
The
idea.
painting of Dorian Gray.
I'm
yeah,
fairly
I
ignorant
don't.
to WB Yeats, to be quite
I
honest. with you.
don't. I think it was W.B. Yeats. I don't think it was Oscar Wilde. Yeah, I think it was W.B. Yeats. So that's almost the opposite way. The fairy lives on their life, and they waste away. Death is no escape for her. She's the Gaelic muse, for she gives inspiration to those she persecutes. So cut your life short, but burn bright, I suppose.
Yeah, like Kurt Cobain, he was prolific for
Exactly.
a few years, and Courtney Love was actually the queen of bananas punani. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, Jesus. Are we saying here live on the podcast that Courtney Love is in fact a banshee?
it's very fucking possible.
I
As a
mean,
matter of
fuck
fact,
me.
I think she might be the closest thing to a banshee that we've come across this episode.
Yeah. The people versus Larry Flint. Anyway, the Gaelic poets die young, for she is restless, and she will not let them remain long on earth. She's a malignant phantom.
Well,
But you're gonna get some real good pussy game. So
well, this is it. So you've got to trade off, right?
Mhm.
So, pick up a guitar or sing or paint, get some bananas minge, have mad crack for like until you're 27 to 30, and then you're dushed.
See ya.
Or live a soy boy burlap IKEA lifestyle for the rest of your life, a mundane rubbish existence.
I feel like there's more options than just those two, but that's okay.
No, because when the Lenon side she proposes you with that, that's the only way the other side seems like. If you don't come across the Lenon side, it doesn't matter. Like, for us, it's grand. But like, if she's that cool that once she appears, nothing is the same ever again. You turn into soy. Like, everything becomes burlap and
Everything
stuff.
becomes tofu. Like,
Yeah.
does she just like she be outside? Like, you leave, I don't know, a nightclub, and she's there like in a red leather jacket, smoking a fag, and she's just like, "Who are you? You want to get out of here?" And you're like, "Oh God!" And if you're like, "No, I have to go home. Actually, I'm a bit tired," and then she's like, "Now I'm your slave forever." You're like, "Sorry, what?"
It's just never the same. You'll never be as prolific ever again. You'll never. So really and truly, you want to think about the Lenon side, because live fast, die young might be the option for you. That's
No, and so yeah, start taking that OxyContin, kids. Start, just burning bright, dying early. That's what we're saying to you officially, Rob Billington.
that's my advice. No, but let us know what you would do. Would you go for some bananas, spectre, punani, or would you be more into like sort of living the soy tofu life? Which I may add is what me and Eamon are doing right now. So it's not like we're trying to sit on our high horse there or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good boys. We escaped all of that. But the Banshee Queen is the real bitch, is the boss
Oh,
bitch.
Cleaner. Yeah.
Kleena is the boss bitch, and to pronounce that, yeah, if you look at it, if you're anywhere not from Ireland, you're not going to get that name at all. The best way,
Clyodhana?
yeah, the best way you're going to spell it if you're from, say, the States or Australia is Cleena, is like the anglicized way to say it, I suppose. But in Irish mythology, Cleena is the queen of the Banshees of the Tuatha De Danann. Cleena of Carrick Cleena is a potent banshee that rules as queen over the Shidog, isn't it? Sidog?
It's a shitog, yeah.
Of South Munster or Desmond. Now, these are the fairy women of the hills that she rules over.
Oh,
Right away.
Lord, the fairy woman
Tale
of the
of
hills.
gorgeous girl. In some Irish myths, Cleena is a goddess of love and beauty and the patron of County Cork. Of course,
People's Republic by.
yeah, then fucking ages would have to take like the best one. Like, oh, we're from Cork, yeah, we have Cleena. She's like the goddess of love, and so it's probably the people from Dublin that portrayed her as like a wench.
Yeah.
But she's said to have 3 brightly coloured birds who eat apples from an otherworldly tree, and whose sweet song heals the sick people.
Nice.
Healed. She leaves the otherworldly island of Tarnger, the land of progress, the land of promise. I have
No, we're in the land of progress. We live in the land of progress.
I have more luck pronouncing African cryptids than I do Irish. To be with her mortal lover Kievan, so I kind of like Kieran, but she's taken away by a wave.
Shout out to you, Dempsey.
Yeah, Kieran, you were with Cleena. But she gets taken away by a wave as she sleeps due to music played by a minstrel of Manannán Mac Lir in Glandore Harbour in County Cork. So the tide there is known as Ton Cleena, Cleena's wave. Whether she drowns or not depends on the version being told, as there are many versions of the story, so the details change. You know, the waves change.
That's some fucking convoluted yoke, isn't it?
Well,
Cleena is the goddess of love and beauty and the patron of Cork City. She has a load of birds that eat apples from a fucking mystical tree, and the song heals sick people. But she wants to be with Cuivon. But she's taken by a wave when she's asleep, and then a music gets played by a minstrel of Manannán Mac Lir in Glandore Harbour in Cork City. What the like? I don't know what's going on at all.
That is literally Irish history for you, though.
That's a Cork story, boy. That's a good story. A fucking Cork story. It's a good, better than any of that Jackie and shite you have up there in the east.
That's a good accent.
Lived in Cork for a while.
You've lived everywhere, actually. I just realised that, and it goes back to your traveller fucking name.
Sure, I'm a traveller. It's in my blood, man. It's in my blood. You don't be getting on to me for travelling around the place. That's what I do. It's me and my father do. And his father before him. I will all do the travelling. Can't drive. I've only got a provisional.
This is very true. Now, Cleena had a palace in the heart of a pile of rocks, as you do, and that is actually 5 miles from Mallow in County Cork, which is still commonly known by the name of Carrick Cleena. So you could visit if you're doing a Monster Fuzz tour of Ireland and you want to go and swing by Carrick Cleena. It's absolutely there, and numerous legends about her are told above the Munster peasantry.
Munster peasantry.
I don't even know where that came from. I don't even know where I'm quoting that from. Yeah.
That's all these scobes on the fucking door. Did you hear about Cleena? Cleana's out there. She's gone again now. She's fucking riding some other fella because she can't get on with Caivon or whatever the fuck his name is. It's like the what's that thing? The 2 Cork lads that do be robbing everyone.
Oh, I don't know that name.
The young offenders.
Oh, right, yeah. I've never actually seen the Young Offenders, to be fair to me.
Really, it's a good show.
I'm fairly bad on Irish pop culture. I'll be quite honest with you. I haven't seen Young Offenders. Right. I haven't seen what's the one with Nidge that everyone shites on about all the time.
Oh,
Love Hate. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen a lot of them, but no Irish fucking episode would be complete without mentioning the Blarney Stone somehow.
You'd have to. It's been in The Simpsons, ladies and gentlemen. The Blarney Stone is that famous. It's been in The Simpsons.
Yeah, so why don't you tell everyone how Cleena ties in with the Blarney Stone?
Okay, I'm going to do it in a Cork accent.
Oh.
For over 200 years, world statesmen, literary giants, and legends of the silver screen have joined the millions of pilgrims climbing the steps to kiss the Blarney Stone and gain the gift of eloquence. Its powers are unquestioned, but its story still creates debate. Once upon a time, visitors had to be held by the ankles and lowered headfirst over the battlements. Today, we are rather more cautious of the safety of our visitors. The stone itself is still set in the wall below the battlements, and to kiss it, one have to lean backwards, holding onto an iron railing from the parapet walk. The prize is a real one, as once you kiss the stone, it bestows on you the gift of eloquence.
So to kiss the Blarney Stone is to
And
basically
tetanus.
yeah, hepatitis and HPV is what you get off kissing the Blarney Stone.
It's from under cheese.
Yeah, that shit is actually, the Blarney Stone is probably in the fucking recession right now because of COVID. Actually,
Yeah, Blarney Stones, they're hemorrhaging cash.
Cormac McCartney, he was he was the builder of Blarney Castle. He was involved in a lawsuit. He appealed to Cleena for her assistance. The Banshee Queen, like as you do when you're in a lawsuit, you go to the Banshee Queen. She's supposed to be like the Ally McBeal of like the Banshees. She told him to kiss the first stone he found in the morning on his way to court. And he did so, with the result that he pleaded the case with great eloquence and won. Now, he didn't get up on a castle and kiss the castle wall. What he did was he kissed a random stone and then set that into the castle wall. The reason that I'm specifying that is because I thought he kissed the castle, but he didn't actually. He found the stone somewhere, kissed that, and then put the stone into the castle walls. First off, the first question I have, is have you ever kissed the Blarney Stone?
No, I have not.
Neither have I, actually.
No.
It looks kind of
when
traumatic.
the thing is, when you're Irish, there's a lot of that like hokey tourist stuff that you just don't do. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've never been to the fucking Guinness Museum. Never
Guinness
been to the
Museum's
Whiskey
good.
Museum. Is it? Yeah.
I've done the Guinness Museum a few years ago. Definitely worth the look, and you get a free pint at the end of it, so it's kind of grand. And it's up at the Sky Bar, and it's got a fantastic view of Dublin City. Actually, it's probably one of the best views of Dublin City. I mean, look, Dublin City ain't going to be winning any fucking sexy prizes or anything. Sexy City fucking 2020 prizes or anything. I think that's the name of the award that they give out for the cities around the world. It's the sexy city.
Yeah, not unlike the second Banshee we were talking about. Dublin City, it'd suck you dry. You'd have nothing there, like money gone.
No. The Dublin is quite a 2D Paper Mario type of city. There's not much like spectacle to it. Its charm is to be found in a pub or in the cobblestone streets. That's the charm of Dublin. A junkie on the floor with heroin needles and stuff like that. You know,
a lad injecting fucking heroin into his testicles, and you will see that. You will see that. When
a lad annoying you for fags for 15-20 minutes when you're just trying to mind your business. A young fella saying you look like a fucking gobshite. And that's the charm of Dublin. So that really, it's not, you're not going to find that up on the top of a Guinness brewery, but you will see.
No, that's true. But you will be able to spit at them from a height because they'll be all out there in Smithfield Square. Don't worry about that.
No, it's nice.
They're drinking cans.
It's actually worth doing. So if anyone is listening and they want to visit Ireland, do check out the Guinness Brewery.
How are we getting on in our application for a tourism grant from the Irish Tourism Board? Probably not great after this, I'd imagine.
Oh no, we do be bringing in everyone. Trust me. Look, we're going to be bringing in plenty of tourists with this Monster Fuzz.
What I would say is, if you're into folklore, you're into, like, I wouldn't say so much cryptids, but more so folklore. The Leprechaun Museum in Ireland is pretty cool, and they do I can't remember the name of it. It's like a dark folklore, I think, is the name of the night, but they tell you about the changeling and lots of like creepy folkloric stories. I did that before, and I thought that was fantastic. Really good.
Yeah, there's a lad in Wexford, actually. If you go into him, he has a shed in the middle of a field. There's nothing else around it. But if you go in and give him a fiver, he'll give you a kick up the arse. That's actually worth going to do as well. I believe he's somewhere out in Tom Haggard.
And that man is my father.
Yeah, no, if you find him, €5, kick up the arse. It's money well spent. And,
Yeah.
to be honest, it will actually leave a fairly. My arse is now a rectangle after dealing with him, but it's something that you should do. It's a part of Irish culture and tradition. And yeah, the Jemison Brewery is the distillery. Sorry, excuse me. It's a distillery. It's not a brewery. It's very good. I went to the one in Cork, as we're talking about in the subject matter, and it's very good. I enjoyed it. And again, you get a sack of whiskey at the end. My girlfriend was driving, so I got extra sacks of whiskey.
Woo!
And it was enjoying. Yes, it was. I enjoyed it. Look, anytime I do the touristy shit in Ireland, I enjoy it. So I'd recommend it. There's plenty of it to do. Fantastic. But Eamon, we're talking about the Blarney Stone. We're talking about how Cormac was able to talk himself out of the court case.
With great eloquence.
Yeah. Have you ever talked with great eloquence to get yourself out of a bad situation?
I don't think so.
Like, is there any situation where you're like, I better doing some bullshitting and I better getting out with this? Whew.
Nothing's coming to mind off the top of my head.
I was on a fucking lord. Like, in school, I was the king of, like, bullshitting to get out of situations. Like, big
what
time.
would you be bullshitting about? Like,
Well, I used to, in third year, third year for reference for people, I was 15. I used to just go into school and I was in a situation where none of my parents were at home, so I was able to just go home. So what I used to do was come in for the first class in the morning, 45-minute class, and then just go, see you lads, I'm off, and just go home. So I did this for literally most of third year. I honestly, I probably was in for like one full day a week, and I do maybe the rest. I do one class, two classes, and head off, truck on home. And I eventually got caught after probably about 6 months, and the airhead was trying to like bluff me, and he was quite an imposing man from Kerry. He was about my height, 6'5", 6'6", and big man, big voice. Didn't really like me, probably because I had an English surname. And he was a very Irish man, but he tried to rumble me. And I knew that he was trying to rumble me. I knew he didn't have shit on me. So I used the gift of the Blarney Stone to talk my way out of the situation. And sort of, it was like my speech skill was 10 and his was like a 3. And I knew, and I got out of it. And I never had to do the full detentions or anything like that.
oh, very good.
I would have been in big doo-doo had I got caught,
Yeah. You probably wouldn't have cared though, would you? You weren't like, school wasn't, you were like, I can take it or leave it.
No, there was nothing really at that point that they could have done that would have mattered. But like, it was still fun to like use your speech skill. But do you want to say about the Blarney Stone and how it has the ability to give you the ability to deceive without offending?
Yeah, so it gives you, it basically imparts the ability to deceive without offending. So this fella, Cormac Leiter McCarthy, he incorporated into the parapet of the castle, which is why, you have to bend down to kiss the stone, or you have to like be a little contortionist to get it. So Cleena doesn't take all the credit for all the Blarney of the McCarthys.
Right.
Queen Elizabeth noted in
Queen Liz.
that she could not effect a negotiation with Cormac McCarthy, whose seat was Blarney Castle, as everything he said was Blarney, as what he says. What? As everything he said was Blarney, as what he says he does not mean. So he's shite talking and Blarney. So you're talking complete brown or Blarney.
Blarney, is that another word for like shite talk? Have I heard that before?
I've never heard that, but maybe they say it in Cork, or maybe they say it in the UK, or well, you probably would have heard about it then.
No, because I hear about everything English. It's like I gotta.
Your granddad would be all like, Robert, you're talking.
My granddad's Irish.
I don't know. One of them anyway.
A pigeon flies through my window with a Union Jack, and on the Union Jack has all the latest English news. Yeah. That's where I get it from. What would Prince Philip be saying to Queen Liz about the Blarney Stone and all this?
I'd say she's accusing him of talking Blarney.
Philip,
you're talking Blarney again. Oh, Lizzie, please let my man have a drink. You've taken me away from my island and my wonderful concubine and harem of women, and stuck here with this fucking shite.
Oh lordy, so yeah, it should be stressed, I think, in this podcast that people absolutely believed in the Banshee in the old days of Ireland. Like, it wasn't a mere old wives' tale, and it wasn't talked about as if we like how we're talking about it now. There's countless references to it in old letters, etc. And one of those reads, "I do not believe that the Banshee's cry is not now heard in Ireland. I distinctly heard it about 5 years ago, previous to the death of my dear brother. He was ailing at the time. It was 12 o'clock at night. I was up with him, watching in case he required a drink, when suddenly I heard an indescribably mournful cry. A letter to the Weekly Irish Times on April 8th, 1893, titled, 'Where has the Banshee gone?' answered its own question. It hadn't gone anywhere." So yeah, basically the Irish Times did a piece from back then, and it got a load of letters in, and a lot of people saying all of these type of stories, like as matter of fact type stories. Would you like to read the next matter of fact type story?
Totally, yeah. I'd say a lot of superstition in sort of late 19th century Ireland, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure,
Like,
yeah.
my grandparents were very superstitious and blah, blah, blah.
I believe Gordo referred to it as a great time for shy talking or something like that.
For shite talking, yeah.
There's just a lot of charlatanry and sort of that type of stuff going on at the time.
And again, we had no electricity in the country then.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, casting long shadows, people getting freaked out, telling each other ghost tales, all that sort of stuff. My father heard the Banshee cry 40 years ago for a great aunt of mine, or I should say, before the death of my great aunt, wrote Minnie McKeown from County Armagh the following week. It was at an early hour of the morning. The Banshee was then said or supposed to be a little woman. However, she has never been seen or heard of since that time. I hear old Irish people say that there are no witches now, so the Banshee and the witches must all be gone to the same country.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so like maybe the Banshees didn't like the ESB, the Electrical Supply Board, and they just ran off.
I think no one in this country likes the ESB.
True. So in one of these letters, Queen Cleena was mentioned, and in her capacity as a Banshee, Cleena is mentioned by the Irish antiquarian John O'Donovan. Writing to a friend in 1849, O'Donovan says, "When my grandfather died in Leinster in 1798, Jesus, the big year, 1798.
Father Murphy.
Yeah. Cleena came all the way from Ton Cleena to lament him, but she has not been heard ever since lamenting any of our race, although I believe she still weeps in the mountains of Drumalique, in her own country, where so many of her race of Owenmore are dying of starvation." Interesting stuff, Eamon. We have a few possible explanations. Do you want to pose one of them to our audience?
Screaming Trees, not the Mark Lanigan fronted grunge band of the 90s, but the noise the wind makes as it howls through trees.
So it was mentioned that, you know, a lot of the time Banshees were seen or heard near trees, right? And it sort of appears, according to this article here, we're reading from an article by Mental Floss, that basically it just sort of breaks down why trees sound spooky, and why they make that weird whistling noise when you're going through the forest at night. Have you ever heard that kind of spooky whistle through the trees, Eamon?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a thing, and it's something to do with, you know, leafy trees absorb noise better than dead shitty trees and all that type of shit. There's a lot of stuff in it, so if you're interested in that article, it's why howling wind sounds so spooky according to science.
Spooky.
Yeah, you can read into it. Now, the other one, which I actually think is probably the main culprit for a lot of this, and maybe it just sort of happened at the time by coincidence, but foxes at night are fucking demented sounding. So if you want to look up a video, there's one called Midnight Fox Screaming on YouTube, and it's a guy and he's on his porch filming. It's all dark and you can hear basically the fox sounds like something out of a fucking horror video game or something.
It kind of sounds almost a little bit reminiscent of the raptors from Jurassic Park 3 when they're trying to talk to each other.
Yeah, it's basically otherworldly and
Mm,
mental. Like if I
yeah.
heard that and I even knew it was a fox, I'd still be like, this shit is crazy. Um, was it a village drunk, Eamon? Was it just, was that what, like, they say that the Banshee was an old drunk, so is it possible that the newer Banshees and Tales were just someone pissed going around the place having a scream for themselves in the middle of the night?
Ah! Well, you probably would have got a lot of that back in Ireland, I'd say,
Yeah,
especially in like, those early years. So yeah, it's possible, yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot,
Now, the
there's
other thing as well, you have like cats in heat. Like the screaming out of cats, like.
yeah, cats and hate are very loud and very banshee-esque. Maybe more commonplace though. So like the
Mm,
only reason I didn't
true.
sort of put them in is just because maybe people heard more of them, whereas like a fox you mightn't always hear.
That's true. Yeah,
Um,
that's very true.
so it's hard to really put it together. Do you have any sort of possible explanation on why the banshee existed? Like, was it real? I don't really think it was real. Was it,
No.
what was the reason for its device? Like, why was it created? You know?
Well, I think that human beings want to have a connection to life and death and some sort of destiny.
Yeah.
So I suppose there's an element of maybe control in that if a banshee wails before you die, there's something that's written, maybe. There's some sense to it. Whereas the fact that people sometimes just die is maybe harder to swallow, if that makes sense.
Yes, very good points. Is it also maybe a thing where if someone had someone crying so loud at a funeral, just naturally, would that mean like, oh, they're an important person? Was it almost like a comforting tale to say to the grieving family, like, you look, listen to this crying, like this was a banshee who was here, this was because he was so important, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I think the idea of the keeners is similar to how we have the wake now. You celebrate someone's life, I suppose, in their death. I guess the keeners are more so to, whereas awake now, it's the showing and the people who tell the stories about so and so or whatever, and you have the drinks. Um, whereas the keener maybe is meant to try to elicit the same response, or maybe to help you deal with the death in some way, because the
Mm.
sad song evokes your own sadness and maybe helps you process it a bit better.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The real like interesting part to break apart on it is the juxtaposition between the banshee as just a simple wailer at a funeral, just a mourner, a griever, and the banshee as a cautionary tale, a sort of scary character that's told to kids to try and keep them in line. But I think, I was thinking about this, and maybe that was told to children or young adults who were maybe well esteemed, or maybe kids that were going to be soldiers at the time, or troops at the time, that the banshee would come and get them if they did something stupid, like, or it was
Mm,
way, because it was wailing to sort of predict the future in a sense, like, I wonder, did old Irish mothers like say, oh, I heard the banshee last night, and maybe it might have been before his son went off to war or something like that.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, once you're aware of the idea of hearing a sound that will, point to someone dying, like you probably hear sounds all the time if you're
Mm.
keeping your ears open for them.
Mm.
So maybe it was something like that.
I think, yeah, I think people definitely heard noises that were banshee like, and I
Mm,
think that 100% people absolutely believed in the banshee based on what we've read today, and,
yeah,
and the research.
totally. And again, look at the times we're talking about. Like, they're talking
Mm.
about people writing at the end of the 19th century about how the banshees aren't there anymore, which means you're talking about hundreds of years before then. You have no electricity, you have no Beats by Dre. Like, you just have sound. Like, you hear everything, you see everything. So and because there's no industrialization in Ireland at the time, or very little, then you're basically looking at having a lot of wild animals that are living in a much more closer proximity to humans, making a lot more noise. So
Yeah, and there was a lot of very rural houses in Ireland back then. Houses were very spaced out, and like
yeah,
you'd have like a fucking house. And Ireland is notorious for it like that. Like, there's too much land being sold in Ireland, so there's like random houses in the middle of fucking nowhere. And most places in the world don't allow that to happen because it's like town planning and all that. But in Ireland, you can literally buy a house wherever the fuck you want and just throw it down. And it's like Donegal is one of the biggest shit shows for that ever. There's some pictures I've seen of Donegal, man, and it's a fucking joke. Like their county council should be fucking shot. Like the houses that are littering like this gorgeous countryside, and they're literally all over the place with all separate individual roads. It's like a fucking maze. It's madness. It's absolutely bananas. I seen the picture before and I couldn't get over it. So back then, you know, it was very much like that, even still, and to a way less of a degree. So there, you know, you'd find a little house somewhere in the middle of a fucking field, and that was kind of the thing, along a donkey track somewhere, you know.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, even in Donegal now, like, there's no point going there if you don't have a car. Like most other Irish places, you'll get around, you'll do bits and pieces. No point going to Donegal.
It's a very beautiful county, though.
Oh, it is very beautiful.
I'm not saying that as a slight to the place. I think it's a magnificent county. As a matter of fact, I think it's so magnificent that it should be preserved more than what it is. And there should be a little bit of fucking town planning, lads. Move to fucking Getter, will you? Get a fucking neighbour. Do you have anything to add to the Banshee episode, Eamon?
I don't think so. I think obviously our next big thing is to try and set up Keener and Kell.
Yes,
I think that's the next big thing.
Yeah, if I've ever learned anything from this episode, it was definitely that we have to do Keener and Kell. And yeah, that might even be a Patreon exclusive EP, perhaps.
we'll eulogize at your funeral through crooning songs.
Yeah, it's like a life assurance type of deal. Yeah, that could be good. But I think then, if we've got no more to add, I think that's been about it. So we'll wrap it up here. I have been Rob, and with me is
it's Eamon,
and we are tuning out. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Charles didn't have just any coronary artery disease. He had Charles's coronary artery disease. Michelle didn't have just any heart attack. She had Michelle's heart attack. At VCU Health Poly Heart Center, we know every heart is unique. And as Virginia's only nationally ranked heart program, we'll keep them beating healthy and strong. VCU Health Poly Heart Center. Learn more at vcuhealth.org/heart.